the face of a stopwatch on the back of a raindrop, and did a swap for the sand in an hourglass. I heard an unhappy ending, it sort of sounds like you leaving. I heard the pile driver waltz, it woke me up this morning.
From Richard Ayoade. Yasmin Paige. Hawkins. Joe Dunthorne. And someone who played Roberts. Okay. I think this is a record for people on stage. So one. Great. Don't like that. You have that seat. I'll set you paper. No, I insist. It's part. No, it's part of that. No, I'm listening. I insist. It's like the extension of the film. No, but I'm very light. So we can't have the talent.
Oh, sorry.
We obviously can't count. Sorry about that, show. We can't afford an extra one. So just to kick off, Richard, obviously this is your debut feature. You've directed other things before. How did it come about? Because you worked with Warp on the film, who are probably the go-to place for sort of young British talent. Paddy, Considine, Shane Meadows, Chris Morris, etc. So how did it come about, the relationship with Warp Pictures?
I had done a music video for the Arctic Monkeys, which came through meeting Warp and meeting them. And then Ali Gibbs, who is here. Yeah,
should we get her on stage?
Gibbs, right? Ali Gibbs is going to do laps. Knows Joe, who wrote the book, and they optioned it. Yeah, and then they gave it to me to look at. It's not the best story.
I think the missing chairs is the best story. So, and what was it about the book that particularly appealed? What was the main attraction?
Probably just the language of it, and I just thought it was very funny, and I liked the character of Oliver Tate and how he kind of thought by describing things he could circumvent their moral import.
Well, there's a sort of dissonance, isn't there, between what he describes and what actually happens, and from the book I imagine that was quite difficult to transfer.
Yeah, certainly successfully, yeah. It's pretty much impossible.
Is it difficult doing that and trying to think of answers?
I mean, not if you want to spill over yourself, you can certainly do. I've got a pleasing ring on my inner thigh.
If you only had a table. And Joe, what was your involvement? Because you obviously came in and you worked with Richard to sort of flesh out what would transfer to the screen and what wouldn't. And how kind of nervous were you about, you know, a first-time director taking a novel that was obviously very successful and very dear to you and making it into a film?
I think there's a switch within the...
There is a switch.
Yeah.
I was in a way nervous, but because of what you said, the book has this unreliable narrator and a kind of internal quality to it that I always thought was unfilmable. I kind of thought I wasn't that worried about the film because it never seemed like it was destined to be a film, so it was always going to be different. So when Richard took over, it just seemed like he wasn't necessarily ever going to be able to be faithful. So I was happy to kind of see him take steps and murder my book brutally. No, it was just felt inevitable that he should kill all that I loved.
That applies in life as well.
Well, I think that applies because the Graham T. Purvis character seems much different. I mean, I think you worked quite closely with Paddy Considine on that character and the kind of transatlantic voice that he does.
Gary Oldman.
Gary
Oldman and David Icke. It's not really Gary Oldman, but it's a bit like, have you heard Clive Barker speak? It's good, isn't it? Yeah, he's got a sort of slightly transatlantic kind of Liverpool kind of, hey, which is a lot of cigars as well, which have deepened and made it even more rugged. But yeah, those sort of people who've been to LA for maybe 3 years searching for crystals.
Failed and come back. Let's bring. I mean, the film is kind of impossible to consider without, I think, Craig and Yasmin, who
I don't know. The way I look at it as essentially stuff without them. That's the way I look
I
at
think
it.
they're just like passengers.
Yeah, when we were editing scenes with them in, I just switched off. I mainly concentrated on inserts and establishing shots.
Or film.
Yeah, credits, that kind of stuff.
Well, let's bring Craig and Yasmin. I mean, how did it feel to you, for you two? I mean, because I imagine you had to go through a very rigorous audition process, and the fact that when you were chosen, you were going to be working with actors of calibre of Sally Hawkins, Paddy Considine, Noah Taylor, who is great. You know, he's one of my. The film reminds me a lot of Flirting. I don't know if that was a. But we'll come back to that. So, how did it feel, you know, to be brought in? And we'll start with you because you've got a microphone, Yasmin. You succeeded where Joe failed.
It was, well, we did a really long rehearsal process, so we got, it was scary at first because it was really quick when we got picked, but yeah, we did a really long rehearsal process, so we got to know each other really well, and sort of the nerves calmed down, I suppose.
And was it?
Sally and Noah and Paddy were wonderful and really loving and supportive, and so it was just a great experience, really. I really enjoyed myself.
And I'm going to give you the microphone.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Just like the film. Sally, these things always come back to haunt you, but I read an interview with you, I think in the Guardian, where you said that you'd known Richard beforehand, and you said yes to the script before even reading it. What was it that made you want to be part of this project?
Well, anything that Richard, you know, does or is involved with, it's going to be great. And I'm sorry, but that is the case. Just, you know, he's very good at what he does, and I knew that the script would be great, and I was really flattered to be asked, actually. I was really excited, you know. I would literally be in the back of shot, one shot, sweeping the floor. So I was really, but I did read the script, obviously, and then didn't think I could do it.
Have second thoughts. So.
Yeah, but actually, delete that text. So, yeah, no, I didn't know how I could play Jill.
You play someone who's obviously a lot older, but you also play someone, there's a sadness to her because you get the sense, you know, she wanted to act and she's sort of given up on her dreams in some way.
Mm.
And I think that's part of the film, you know, there is a melancholy to the film, but it also deals, as well as being very funny, it does deal with issues, quite serious issues, you know, bullying, terminal illness, dog poisoning, hand jobs, but you know, and serious subjects, you know, depression and so how did you kind of bring that in? I mean, it's in the novel, but how did you make sure that that transferred to the, because there aren't these uneasy lurches between the tones, I don't think, in this film.
I suppose you don't really think of one bit as needing to be funny and one bit needing to be melancholy. You just hope it makes sense, really, and whether it's earned or... So, yeah, and I mean, it's following the book and the tone of the book. That's for me. That's, I just get it. I mean, this answer, I wouldn't listen to it. I mean, honestly, whatever call that is will be better than what I'm about to do. Like, even if it's from the bank, it'd just be a voice message. I just take it. I mean, I really would. Well, I mean, do I have a lot of reverb on me at the moment? I'm feeling a bit like Orson Welles. So, yeah, you don't kind of go, oh, this bit's a hoot, and this is where we bring it down. You just, what about? No. So, yeah, you don't really think about it like that so much.
I think there is comedy in darkness as well. I think Submarine sort of shows that. I mean, it's quite dark themes in the film, I suppose.
Comedy isn't really valued in a strange way when I think it's one of the most important things. I mean, if you can do comedy, I think you can do he could do anything, and life goes from tragic to comic in sort of turns on its. And I think the best films have a poignancy as well as an ability to make you laugh. And I don't think there's anything quite as special, actually.
There's various pieces that you've done as well. There's a thing in The Guardian last week. It's like The Guardian had become your sponsor, and you did your sort of A to Z of anti-heroes, which wasn't actually alphabetical, but it started off and then changed. In terms of you know, Craig and sort of giving him some of the kind of influences and some of the precedents, what were some of the people that haven't read that article? I mean, there's the sequence where you give Catcher in the Rye, which is an obvious.
Yeah, you read Catcher in the Rye beforehand. That was one of them, and in a way, I think everyone's different. Like, some people, I think, find it very off-putting seeing other performances before they do something, but it felt that Craig wouldn't find that odd. Did you find that odd? Yeah. If so, sorry. But, be like this person. But yeah, you watched Harold and Maude and Rushmore and The Graduate, Good and Well maybe, and I sort of had a lot of Jean-Pierre Melville in mind, sort of Alain Delon, and Badlands and Taxi Driver. Yeah.
And also, again, another piece I read, this probably wasn't in The Guardian, this was in The Sun. You gave Yasmin Christina Ricci films to go away and watch. Yasmin, which ones did you watch, and how did they influence how you approached the part? She's quite unpleasant, isn't she, Jordana? I mean, she's got a mean streak, which most of the characters in this film.
Richard just said that Christina Ricci was really good at being mean, and so I watched The Opposite Sex, Buffalo 66, and The Ice Storm. I think Christina Ricci's phenomenal. I think like one of the characters in like the opposite sex, which is I suppose it's very funny, but I don't sort of know what genre you would place it in. But that character was really hilarious, and she was really mean and sort of like disregarding about everybody. On that film I watched for Submarine, and she was sort of really mean in it, but also really hilarious because she was just so ridiculous, and sort of the way that she behaved was so sort of out there that it was funny.
Oh, the book came out quite a few years ago, and I was put in. It was optioned by Warp Film. So then I met Richard Ayoade, and we worked together watching films in his attic, watching Woody Allen movies and Taxi Driver and American Psycho, anything with voiceover basically. And then we worked on the script. He was the scriptwriter, but I was a script consultant. So I was kind of, I suppose my role was just to try and keep the characters in my book feeling like they were authentically the same, or at least kept the spirit of my characters.
But you obviously do come from a real cinema background, and you concentrate on the films. There's sort of Roma, even in the characters, but in the shot. You know, you said that the shot on the beaches with Samurai. You know, there's Godard in the titles and everything. You know, how much did you want your own cinema going background? And the scene when they go and watch Joan of Arc on a date, which is probably the worst date movie since the Taxi Driver. You know, how much of your background did you want to reflect in that?
Well, I think Oliver thought Joan of Arc would be good because it'd be someone being set on fire. So I think he thought Jordana would like that, but she got too bored before the burning started. And it was more that Oliver sees himself as being in a film, and so rather than hopefully imposing a lot of styles, it was as though he was directing it himself, and he would wish to be seen as though he was in the Samurai under the bridge, or you know, he'd have a specific reference for each scene that you would kind of import into it.
Good answer. Very good. And again, in the production notes, you talk about Nestor Almendaros being the cinematographer being an influence. You know, I'm part Welsh, so I love Wales, but I mean, it's difficult to imagine kind of Days of Heaven and Badlands set in Swansea and Barry Island. How did you take that sort of autumnal look? How did you convince the cinematographer that you used on this film that you could kind of replicate that look?
Well, the idea was that when you're at school, the bits when you're outside are golden. You know, the sort of that's what the light looks like. It's sort of dusky or dawny, especially that time of year, and just that kind of natural lighting, magic hour look that Nestor Almendros has in Days of Heaven and Love in the Afternoon, and I guess it's Barbara Schroeder's stuff. I just really like that, and also it allowed you to move fast. You know, people don't have to hit marks ever. It wasn't really sort of precise. It was quite rough and ready, and yeah, just like that natural light feel, I guess.
And in terms of, I'll throw it open to the audience in a second, but I mean, one of the things with this film that is everywhere it goes, it meets with a really positive reaction. It played in Toronto, I think it played in Berlin, it played in London, where it went down tremendously well. I mean, to have made your first film and be getting this reaction, the critics have liked it, The Guardian especially was very glowing and, you know, sold out tonight. It must be pleasing to have kind of...
I managed to focus on the negative aspects of things. Yeah, if one person dislikes it, I completely believe them. I believe they're right. And yeah, you just follow people who hate you. See what they have to say next. I don't like the look of this film. I've now seen this film. I don't like it. I don't like what he said about the film. I'm looking forward to not liking his next film. Those are the kind of people I like to follow.
Good luck.
Well.
Okay, let's take some questions from the audience. It's quite hard to see up here. We do have a roving microphone. So if we can see, if anybody has a question for anybody on stage? No? Really? Oh, there's somebody there.
Hi, hello. Richard, you said sort of in the build-up to this that you find filmmaking really difficult, which makes me feel sort of bad for you, because after watching that, I'm sure there's producers out there that are going to force you to make at least another several films. There's a sketch of Woody Allen in that film, who quite often directs himself in films. Would you ever direct yourself in a film, or would that move the filmmaking process from difficult to impossible?
Well, I mean, Woody Allen is good. He's really good. So he's right to cast himself. He's sort of, I think, the best actor ever, I think, Woody Allen. I don't think anyone can deliver a line better than Woody Allen. I can't think of anyone's voice I'd kind of really rather hear in a film. He's just incredible. These are not my concerns. I don't really feel that I'd cast myself very readily. If I did, I'd probably fire myself, hopefully in front of everyone else, and make an example of myself. So, yeah, I find it pretty appalling as a thought at the moment. I mean, maybe I'll get better at it's unlikely. I mean, it doesn't look good so far. I mean, on a graph, it's not looking good.
Thanks, congratulations on the film. There's quite a lot of US films that are stylised on a similar topic. I just wondered whether you were worried about some of the comparisons that might come out in the film.
No. I mean, not really. Yeah, I mean, there's not much you can do about that. And also, I think the things that people compare it to are never quite the things in your mind. It's quite good because it disguises the people you really have ripped off, which, yeah. So I'm really pleased. It's a good kind of a red rag over there to distract from the wholesale theft that's occurring over here.
Okay. Anybody else in the crowd? Yeah, somebody right by a microphone.
Hello. I've got a question for all of you about making a film about Wales and how did you prepare? You didn't sound very Welsh when you were just speaking earlier, so I was wondering whether you are Welsh and how. So that's part A. Part B.
Me. Yeah,
no,
the secret's out.
Not just you.
Okay.
Everybody else as well. And then how the film's been received in Wales. How has it been received?
Are you Welsh? Is that interesting?
No.
No. Okay, so hands up, who on stage is Welsh? Welsh. Oh, that's pretty good. Okay, that's quite a lot. No, you're not.
Who in the audience is Welsh? Okay, that's a good amount. Any more and I'd feel uncomfortable.
You're in the majority. So, I mean, obviously, Joe, this is probably a question more because you're obviously Welsh and the novel's set in Wales. Is it Swansea set, isn't it?
Yeah, it's set in Swansea, and that's where I grew up. But I don't sound very Welsh, even though I was there till I was 18. But I have an English dad and a Scottish mum is my excuse. And I hate Wales secretly, so I've stopped.
Really?
No, I don't. I love it.
So who else was really Welsh? You're really Welsh. Really Welsh.
Yeah, I'm Welsh. I wouldn't say really Welsh.
How Welsh? Percentage?
100% Welsh.
100% Welsh. And how did the film go down in Wales?
Good, pretty good. Yeah, they liked it. I think.
There was no sort of major premiere, really.
There was a premiere, yeah.
There was a premiere.
It wasn't a major premiere.
It was a Welsh premiere.
The Swansea premiere.
Swansea premiere, which was pretty major though.
It was very major, yeah.
Did you film? Because I'm from South Wales, and it didn't look much like Swansea. Was it filmed in Swansea?
We're from South Wales, are you?
We're Cardiff.
I'm from Caerphilly.
I'm from Pigs and Submarine. I love this guy.
Awesome.
It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's really good. I don't sound Welsh either. So where was it? Where was it filmed? Where did you film most of it?
It was a mix, wasn't it? Barry and Blind Queanbeyan in the valleys, and also Swansea.
Barry Island's awful, isn't it?
Yeah.
Alright, we've dealt with that. That's the Welsh thing.
I like Barry.
Do you?
Yeah, I really like it.
It's the second major mistake I've made. I've alienated
It's not a
everyone
mistake.
from Barry.
As you can tell by my posture, I'm very angry. I'm just trying to swallow it.
It's pretty grim, isn't it, Barry?
I really like it.
Really?
It's good. I like the beach there. I like Barry Docks.
Really?
I like the industrial estate.
Did you go to the fun fair?
Yeah, it's really good. They had ice skating. It's really...
Sorry. Well, let's
I liked it. But it's good.
Let's move on.
Should we say something casually racist just to...
No. Unless you want to.
Maybe to close.
So does that deal with the Welsh question?
I'm not trying to be pernickety, but I think the first part of the question was, how did you prepare for, I guess it's more to the non-Welsh, how did you prepare for doing a Welsh film?
I don't know, like press-ups, what do you want? I don't know, we wrote a lot of L's in a row. We went there. I mean, you do have to prepare. I mean, if you're going to Wales, for God's sake, bloody prepare. Because anything can happen, it's mental. I mean, we kind of wore armour. We did a lot of weapons training. I don't know. We kind of were racist a lot. And, you know, just the stuff you do when you go to Wales.
The Welsh Tourist Board would be very interested in this.
Well, Sally, you went on a course, didn't you? Yeah, it was really, I mean, we all had to go on them. I mean, they won't let you through the border. Got to sit in an exam. It's brutal. Mm. Yeah, I mean, it's every year now. Yeah, it's like a top-up.
Okay, let's have a non-Welsh question. We've got time for probably 2 or 3 more, so show of hands, anybody? Somebody down at the front here, we can have a microphone.
Hi, it's just a question for Sally. We've come all the way from Bolton today, Manchester. We came last year to see your premiere at Made in Dagenham. Just wondering how you're doing and... Hello, everybody. What's next?
Thanks for coming.
And everybody else, we've all looked at you all on the website and
Okay.
come a long way to now being pulled down by my traveller. So please answer my question.
Of course. Lovely to see you again.
You did sign a ram last time we were seeing.
What, sorry?
You did sign my friend's arm last
I
time.
did, yes. Did
Do you
is it still
remember?
there?
Well, she washed it off a year after.
Unbelievable. I washed it off after tetanus.
Sorry.
I hope it didn't get any poisoning from it, but sure. Lovely to see you again, and thank you. I don't know what I'm doing next.
Sorry for embarrassing you. I know
No,
you're a bit of
not
a
at all. Thank you for standing
Can
up.
I say this is my favourite question?
She's out in the background there.
In the House of Commons.
Got to stand up and ask you a question.
In Plato's dialogues. My favourite question of all time.
Anyway, I'd like to thank you from the play you did in New York.
Thank you very much.
And I think as a group you was all good, and especially Sally, I like watching all your plays and all your films, and I like you in Happy Go Lucky, I like that one. And to all of you, love you all.
I haven't paid this man, but I will do now. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Hawkins. Okay, we've got time for a couple more questions, because this all feels like a bit of a surreal dream. I'm hoping we're going to wake up. So, anybody? Anybody else? Going once? There's somebody. Hooray. Sensible question.
Testing.
Hello. I was just wondering if the film was set in a particular time, or whether it was kind of a conscious thing to kind of not really have any references to when the period was.
It's not set in any particular time. It's sort of there's this film Metropolitan, which I love, by Whit Stillman, which says Manhattan Christmas Vacation not so long ago. I like that as a time setting. So yeah, no specific dates.
Did Dundee come out in 1987?
Yes, it did. It did come out in 1987, as we all know. Box office receipts? You're an amateur. But, like, say where I live, Beverly Hills Cop 2 ran for like 7 years. Never out. So I just thought it could be a revival. It could have been set in a kind of parallel universe where it had been released prior to 87. It was kind of, I mean, there are certain things, you know, they have dentistry, that dates it. And, you know, it was certainly set post Jesus Christ. But it was not to be a specific time, and I just thought, yeah, Crocodile Dundee could be, you know, a revival, you know, Paul Hogan retrospective, that kind of thing.
Okay, we do have time for one more question. Anybody has one? Maybe not Mr. Hawkins. There's somebody, yeah.
Hi, just a question for Joe. What inspired you to write the book, and were there any particular people that inspired you?
Well, the book was, I suppose, loosely based on my own childhood. In the book, that Oliver grows up in the house that I grew up in the area of Swansea, where I grew up in, and the parents, well, the dad in the book, and actually Noah Taylor in the film, is quite a bit like my dad, but the mother is not. So my mum, when she sees the film, kind of watches her husband married to Sally. She's disturbed.
Like that, man.
Just like you in your dreams. So yeah, it's got the book has got quite a bit of my own upbringing, and then the film less so. Sorry, that wasn't supposed to be cruel.
Okay, let's bring this evening to a close.
I think that's a note to end it on.
I think it's well, you were going to make a casually racist remark to close.
Sure. Spanish people.
We'd like to thank Optimum Releasing. Submarine is on general release. It's here at the Curzon Soho. Tell all your friends to go and see it. It's great to have interesting British films, and I think this is one of the best films of of this year so far, and very enjoyable, so do go and see it. I'd like to thank Craig Roberts, Richard Ayoade, Yasmin Paige, Sally Hawkins and Joe Dunthorne.
Do you want the beer now? You can actually drink the beer.
I can drink.
It isn't the BBC, you're allowed to drink beer on
Just
camera.
going to do it.
That was brilliant.
Oh God!
Sally, thank you so much.
I want to do it all again.
And so was your food.